Hello, everyone, and welcome to VisionAir Talks, a series of conversations with some of the most fascinating artists in the international balloon community. In this series, we go beyond techniques and designs and talk about creativity, inspiration, and the stories behind the people who shape this unique art form. Today's guest is an artist whose work challenges what people think balloon art can be. While many see balloons as playful and light, he used them to explore deep, emotional, and sometimes even uncomfortable themes, turning a temporary material into powerful visual storytelling. His sculptures often feel closer to fine art than traditional balloon decor, drawing inspiration from classical art, symbolism, and social commentary. Through his work, balloons become more than decoration. They become a medium for expression, reflection, and conversation. I'm very excited to welcome today's guest, the one and only DJ Morrow. Hi, DJ, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's good to be here.
It's really great honor to have you here with us on VisionAir Talks. Um, for the viewers that not familiar with you, can you please explain about yourself in some words?
Yeah, I'm DJ Morrow. I am a self-styled fine art balloon sculptor, which doesn't really say a lot and it says a lot at the same time, right? So I create these large compositions that are have for a long time been meant just for the camera, right? It was something that I started during COVID when I actually had no place to display my sculptures. So I had these elaborate scenes and different images that have these dramatic connotations filled with heavy symbolism that speak on topics that are really important to me, and that's been my main pursuit for a long time. And then around 2023, I started shifting it towards in-person exhibitions for several different reasons, which maybe we'll go into later. But uh, I did that for a couple of years and did quite a few solo exhibitions around Houston and then some around different other parts. And now I'm sort of shifting back and trying to find a nice balance because there's a lot you can get from exhibitions, but then there's certain things that you can only get by just hunkering down in a private space and making the art the best that it can be in isolation. Yeah.
That's truly amazing because I saw your some of your designs and I was in shock because you took it to other levels, different techniques and uh, way of point of views, and it's really unique. And I'm really glad that you are here. And my first question for you, it's the beginning. How you start with balloons? How you get inside this industry?
Well, at the very beginning was me at 16 and I needed a job and my parents used to do balloons when they were in their 20s. I actually grew up in a cult that had a lot of people doing balloons because people weren't allowed to work regular jobs, and so balloons and clowning and busking, that was a big thing. By the time I was in my teens, we had left that group. But that skill was still with my parents and they were still doing it part time. And I picked it up and learned everything they could teach me in the span of about 2 weeks and was hungry for more. And luckily, there was YouTube at the time, right? So I could jump online and learn stuff from Cody Williams and Jonathan Fudge and Holly the Twister Sister. And that got me started as a teenager. And then I did it for about 8 years, the like restaurants and parties and festivals and the whole shebang. And
So
then around 29.
what what took this hobby or opportunity to different level to like a new career or when you realize it's going to be a part of your life?
In 2019, I was dealing with a lot of personal issues, grief around losing my sister, a lot of that trauma that I hadn't properly processed, and just depression and loneliness, and I needed to like get it out. And I had the balloons with me and decided to just make something that expressed my deep feelings on it. You know, I wasn't at a gig, I wasn't trying to entertain kids or something, and it was just purely for me. And then I photographed a couple of those works and put them online, and I got a lot of amazing reception. It was people saying that they were deeply emotionally touched by those works in a way that they never have with balloons before. And I was surprised and I was encouraged, and it really made me sort of rethink the whole medium. I was pursuing other art forms at the time. Balloons was just for making money, you know, and it's fun to like make kids happy and stuff with the balloons, but it's also really difficult when you are struggling with your own uh inner problems. And so that was a really big help in allowing me to do the balloons for other people, to bring them joy and sort of also use it to process my own traumas and my own difficulties aside from that. And then I did a couple of those again over the next year, year and a half. COVID hit. Super big bummer for everybody. Um, right, we had like 9/11's worth of people dying every week. And I recreated one of my favorite paintings. It was Saturn Devouring His Son by Francisco Goya. Just this really dark and intensely visceral piece, because it felt like we were living in such a visceral time, right? We had like politicians who were basically sacrificing the elderly and the vulnerable at the altar of the GDP. And I just felt like I needed to touch on that nerve. And it was so dark and so visceral that I didn't even put it on my social medias at the time. I was thinking of getting back into like kids' parties and angling for more corporate events and stuff. So I just put it on Reddit, and then it just blew up there. It shot up to the number one post on Reddit that day.
Wow.
And yeah, and it just went viral in a lot of other places as well. And it really made me think that there could be a future there, right? Like the original emotional pieces were sort of me reevaluating my relationship with the medium, and then this piece was me thinking about that use of the medium in that way as an actual career, as an actual trajectory to go on. And so I
Wow.
decided to just stop limiting myself. I decided that I was going to be true to my own artistic voice and vision and be unapologetic about it. And it's gotten me a lot of cool places, and I think it'll continue to bring me far.
I don't think that any artist should feel limited with his dreams, with his visions, even if it's odd, even if it's something different. And that is really important to know and understand that uh, artists grow um, bigger when they have a free imagination and they don't afraid to express themselves.
For sure, for sure. It was It was, yeah, an expanse in the scope of what I was able to imagine. You know, so many of these things you work on or you unlock, and suddenly you have ideas that you could never have dreamed of before, and that's because you weren't thinking at that level. You weren't thinking in that scale before. So yeah, it really expanded my realm of possibilities.
It's amazing. I saw your design yesterday. um, with the giant, with the buildings, and the first thing that I look at this design was the details, the little things that make the difference. Like you explain to me, um, when you uh, take the main character or design and you make it bigger and put it on the front, and then at the back you put the background smaller. Um, this is something that I don't think artists know about um, designs because they are focused on their art, on their designs, and not on the overall or what people will feel when they will see this design.
Yeah, that to me was what I would put in the category of like a technical idea, right? And technical ideas can serve any purpose that you want, right? The use of forced perspective, which is what you were calling it, which is what I was calling it, is, making the things that are closer to the camera bigger than the things that are further away. And this is like a concept that is very familiar in like the Lord of the Rings movies, where they used it heavily to like make Gandalf big and then the hobbits little by bringing Gandalf closer to the camera and the hobbits further away. But it can be used to like demonstrate an enormous scale that actually isn't there, which was what I was doing in that piece. And it's something that had been rattling around in my head for a long time. One of those like little technical ideas that I want to try out, but to me, it's important that the technical idea serves the message, right? And so I will have all of these different cool little things that I want to try out, and I'll just keep them in the back pocket and wait until that puzzle piece fits whatever puzzle that I'm trying to build. And it was actually inspired by a piece at Twist and Shout that I was just at recently. This guy making this little penguin diorama, and this little penguin further up is like much larger. And I had been contemplating a forced perspective piece for a while, but something that I really love about Twist and Shout is it'll give you the motivation to actually finally do the thing, right? Seeing it in person and seeing people utilize different techniques. Yeah, and so it came together like that.
It's amazing. It's amazing thinking, and wow, really, really unique way of thinking. Um, your art is very different in our industry in many ways. Where did that darker, more emotional, artistic style come from?
Well, it was always there in my own personal and private work. I've always been drawn to the darker art, something that like really doesn't shy away from the uh the difficult side of humanity and yet also finds a beauty in that side as well, right? And so I was always like doing like dark drawings or paintings or charcoal or whatever. And even in music, like I'm very much a big metalhead and have been since I was a little kid. I was like listening to the heaviest metal that I was allowed to in my sort of more restricted upbringing. And there's some good bit of like Christian metal that hit pretty hard that I was allowed to listen to
Yeah.
much to the chagrin of my parents. But they were like, "Why are you always obsessed with the darker art?" And it's like I can like pontificate and I can hypothesize, but it is what it is, and it is my personal taste. And I was stuck for so long doing the kid-friendly stuff, right, with balloons. And I guess it's kind of just built up and it built up. And when I was finally allowed myself to release it, it really came flooding out and it came strong.
It's really interesting. Um, so um, your sculptures feel like they're coming from movies or darker scenes or paintings even. Um, where were there artists or art movements that influence your way in the industry?
Well, my art influences are pretty eclectic, and you would be hard pressed to find a single through line. Like, I find it my duty as an artist to consume art and to sit with it and to let it enrich me, right? And that's watching movies, that is playing video games. There's a lot of like really artistic video games that I have drawn aesthetic and thematic inspiration from. Elden Ring was something that really inspired quite a few of my pieces in terms of the aesthetics and going to museums and galleries and opening shows and stuff like that. And so just trying to have as much exposure. And then when something does stick, it really sticks, right? Something that is iconic, something that speaks to you on a deep level. And I find that even if I'm not purposefully uh, documenting what really tickles my fancy there, like taking pictures or whatever. If something resonates with me, it'll reverberate, it'll come back, right? When I need it the most, when it will serve the idea that I'm trying to portray. If I'm thinking of like a concept or trying to speak on a theme or something, like the latest piece was very much about the necropolitics of war, about the dehumanization of the other and the devaluation of some people's lives over other people's lives. And that really fit aesthetically with a lot of the, I'm gonna mispronounce his name, but Zlajał Beksinski. I think Beksinski is pronounced right, but I don't think the first name is. But he's this Polish, I believe, painter who lived through World War II, and a lot of his paintings were inspired by the events there and sort of the atrocities that he witnessed, and it has that feeling uh of organic matter being reduced down to the physical and being distorted and defiled. And that was really what I was feeling. And so automatically those two emotional uh, tangents connected together and created the influence that brought that piece together. And that works the same with a lot of the other pieces. Sometimes they're much lighter hearted pieces, and it'll resonate and it'll bring up some memories of some lighter art that I really enjoyed, that never really found itself in my art until then. So yeah, it's just making a very concerted effort to consume as much as possible in a productive way and to enrich yourself and to keep an open mind about the sources of art that inspire you.
Mhm. Very, very interesting. Um, my next question is most of the artists taking the balloons to different kind of way, the entertainment way, and they are really different than than your art, your voice. Let's say it like this. Um, my question is, was there a moment where you consciously uh, decided to go in this direction?
Yeah, I think I talked about that a little bit before. It was the Saturn devouring his sun piece where I thought that there wasn't any point in me uh limiting myself, and it also had something to do with the other art that I was making and how difficult that was. I am a drummer, I'm a musician, and I was playing with several different bands for many years, and the band that I was playing with around like 2018, 2019, we were touring around Houston for several years and a little bit outside of the city, and it was just incredibly difficult for the amount of effort that we were putting in because the field is so saturated with so many incredible artists, and it is the same in pretty much every other field, right? It's like the capacity to improve yourself as an artist has never been higher, right? You have musicians that are playing in their living room, posting on YouTube, who blow most of the uh, veterans of the industry out of the water just with their level of technical skill and creativity and artistry. And that's the same in pretty much every medium that we have right now. The internet has truly democratized learning art, and at the same time, it has reduced our abilities to make a living off of it and also to like gain a following off of it just because there's so much out there. And so realizing that I had a shot at standing out doing the balloons, right? It was what do they call it? They call it a oh man, now I'm blanking on the term where it's just you have the unique selling point, right? And that is something that makes you stand out, something that's unique to you. And that was really it for me. And then I thought to myself, like, I am wasting my time working on s- being a small fish in such an enormous pond where I can, like, try to be the biggest fish that I can in this incredibly small pond and actually gain some visibility and hopefully make a difference.
That's really smart. I never thought about being unique, the first one in your own pound, and inventing your own way, your own voice. It's really unique.
It comes with a lot of challenges. There is no set way to do things, right? Which means there is no institutional pressure to conform to a specific method or a specific way of displaying your work. It also means you have to come up with everything yourself. You have to forge the path and you have to blaze that trail. And that is exhausting and that is scary, to like strike out and to fail and to fail and to um spend money on things that don't make money back, and it's can be disheartening at times, but it is encouraging uh to have people resonate and to see progress slowly but surely.
So how you deal with when you're speaking about that, how you deal with the time, the not the time of the build itself, but the time that the balloon lasts, because I saw a picture of one of your exhibitions with the eagle and the hand with a pen that right. It was amazing, and I thought of myself, it takes so long just to actual sculpt it, uh, and build it, and it will last for a few days. So how you deal with this issue?
That piece actually was not publicly displayed. It was done in my parents' living room.
Oh,
Yes,
really?
and yeah, the backdrop was put up, and I did the piece with Ben Kirsch in 2 days. Finished it around like 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. or something. Got the pictures, and that was that, right? It
Was
was.
hilarious. It was really unique art.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was popped maybe like 2 days later or something.
Oh
And
no.
well, it wasn't a big deal for me because to me a lot of these pieces are about the accomplishment of making real the image in my head. So the sculpture is not the art, right? The image is the final art. And so the sculpture, just like if you were to like make a clay sculpture and then mold that so that like you can make a resin cast or something like that. That initial clay sculpture, that's not the art. That is a step in the process to creating the art. And so for a lot of these at-home pieces, the sculpture is just a step in the process towards creating that final image, which is the art, right? And that was born, like I said, out of necessity with my start in this area of balloons being during COVID when people were not having in-person events, and I would like ring up different places and be like, "Hey, I have this cool balloon sculpture. Do you want to display it for free?" And they're like, "There's nobody here. We cannot we cannot invite people to like an event or something." And it was good because it allowed me to develop that artistic vision and that style, and it really engendered a love of photography in me, which I'm currently trying to take even further, sort of having the pendulum swing back a little bit from exhibitions to taking the photography a bit more seriously again and trying to explore the photography for its own sake because it will come back into the balloon work, right? Just like I was saying with purposefully enriching yourself with your artistic influences, you also have to uh, explore other mediums and other artistic ways of doing things with intention as well, even if it might not seem related to your main interest, because it's going to make you a more well-rounded artist and it will give you these nuggets and these bits that you'll be able to take back to your main practice and have it be a much more interesting, developed, and varied output.
Um, so um, you are taking your art, your designs, if I got it right, not you making them not for the public to see, but to most of it for the later for the shots that you're taking with them to express the emotions and the feeling that you want.
That's right. But I can talk a little bit about how I approach the time constraints for the in-person exhibitions, which is I do still sketch out each in-person exhibition design on paper, sometimes digitally, but mostly on paper. So I do have that same approach of coming up with an image in my head and wanting to make it real, right? But this time it's for the person. And I actually did a class at Twist and Shout talking about my approach to that and how it differs from my approach to creating these at home for the photography sculptures, where I do want to create an experience for people. It is still a very strong visual image, but there's also an element of exploration and discovery that is enabled when you do an in-person exhibition, right? And so the the timelines for my exhibitions, I find the sweet spot is like 5 days, like maybe a week. And that is because I'm pretty married to my love of highly detailed sculptures, right? Something like the stuff that you've done uh with the big balloon exhibitions that you've done, there is a certain limit to how detailed you can make the sculptures, right? Because
Definitely.
all those 160 work goes away so fast, and that is a constraint that can breed creativity, right? It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is something that I find helps tell the stories that I want to tell and to communicate the emotions that I want to communicate when I have that full freedom. And so I basically view it as a plus. This is a very exclusive event, right? This is something that you have to see in person and you have to see it now. It is basically a medium that generates its own FOMO, fear of missing out, which is, in marketing terms, it is one of the most valuable things you can have in terms of hyping up anything, right? And it really brings a value and a specialness to the event. When people come and see it in person, they're overwhelmed not just with the the grand spectacle of it, but also the fact that this won't be here next week, right? That they feel that they are special for being able to see it when they see it, right? And I think that's a really cool experience to give people as well. And so I do the proper staging, right? You build from big to little. You build from simple to most detailed so that the bigger stuff will still look good, and then the smaller stuff you make absolutely at the last possible minute so that it can still look as good as possible 5, 6 days from then. And that is usually my strategy, and that is combined with strong photography work, right? So I still have that strong image in my head that I do want to make real as the photos, because people will be able to enjoy it as the exhibition, but it won't last. And it's sort of a way of extracting more value from my effort. And I've been trying to film as much of my process as possible so that I can also make videos after everything is all done. And this idea might sort of evolve in the future, is to like create these build videos that people are going to be interested in watching to see how the build all comes together, and then weave in the artist statement, the explanation of what the piece actually means, because these works are so laden with meaning and with depth to them that is relevant and that is speaks about real world events. And so, along with explaining my meaning behind it, having that video content also gives me an opportunity to speak on those real world events and to hopefully educate the viewer more on what motivated me to create these really dramatic and impactful pieces.
So this answer connect me to my other question. Some of your designs have social or political messages hiding in the inside of them, or even publicly shown. Um, when you create something like this with a political or social message, um, um, are you thinking about making a statement, telling a story, or it's something else that you want to pass to the viewers?
Yeah, well, like you said, sometimes it's right on the face of it, and sometimes it's hiding in plain sight. And I do struggle with finding the right balance there, because I don't want to be ham-fisted as an artist. I don't want to beat people over the head with certain concepts for several different reasons. First off, like it it flattens the work, right? if I'm speaking with visual imagery, sort of like Jungian archetype symbols, things that speak to a deeper aspect of the human experience, then I can speak about the things that motivated me to make that piece, but also people can read into it something that reflects their own personal experiences. And I find that really enriching and rewarding for me is when people come up to me and explain their interpretation of my work. And sometimes it's totally different from what I originally envisioned the work to be, but that's because I am hitting on a note of an emotional note that's deeper than the specific circumstances, right? It is how those circumstances make you feel. And that specific emotion can be felt in a lot of different scenarios, in a lot of different situations for a lot of different people, right? And it's
it's
also
also it's also like a fine art. It is a fine art. So it's taking the viewers to different point of views, their own point of views, and they can take your story to theirs, to interpretate. Sorry, it's a hard word for me, uh, but to take their own story and to put it on your story, on your design.
that's right. And it makes them think, and that's super important to me. I want people to think because it engages them with the work and it engages them with their own worldview, right? My art is worth nothing if it doesn't make people reevaluate their worldview, right? No one's going to change their mind if you're just shouting your opinion as just your opinion, right? You have to ask something of the viewer. And the keeping it vague or keeping it layered under several different like layers of symbolism is a way to do that. But even when I don't do that, balloons inherently do that, right? They are something that people are not expecting to have like serious ideas confronted to them in the form of balloons. And so it already makes them reevaluate what they're looking at. And so my hope is that when I bring this message in such an unconventional medium, people have no choice but to stop and reflect, right? Even if it's just about the medium, that is inevitably going to spill over into the message, right? People reflecting on the message and how it's told in this unique and an unexpected way. Yeah,
That's amazing, and um, your way of thinking, it's really unique. I really admire uh, how you look at life, how you look at our industry, or our community. It's really unique, and thank God for you for being a part in this community. Um, my next question is, you when you want to make a new design, um, what usually comes first? The concept, um, the feeling that you want the public, the viewers to feel, or your own emotion, your own story. Let's say it like this.
it is different every time, right? It's interesting how things never come together the same way twice. Sometimes I will have the technical idea and I'll be like, I really want to use this weave that I've come up with, or like combine these two materials in a new way. And I won't know how to do it. And so I'll just have to sort of sit on it. And, or sometimes like there's going to be a topic out there that like is really getting to me. This art acts sort of as a release valve for me, as a way of processing different emotions and current events as well, right? If like there's such an emotional buildup in me from like depression or anxiety or frustration or like passion, whatever that is, I'll be looking, I'll be vigilant for an opportunity to express that in a way where I can sort of release it and then be able to move past it. And that's something that's really valuable about the balloons is it's temporary, right? It is not like a big sculpture that sits in my living room and stares at me every time I make my coffee, right? It is something that I can take the picture of, and that is the picture is like it's the trophy that sort of speaks to moving past the thing, and then the sculpture's gone, and I can move on to the next one, right? Or if it's like a current event that I really want to talk about, then I'll sort of sift through my box, my metaphorical box of technical ideas and mix and match and see what tells the story I want the best. And sometimes I'll have that technical idea and I'll be like, what is a story that I can tell with this? So things come together different every time, but I always want to make sure that I have those elements, an interesting technique, right? Something that excites me materially, in terms of putting things together, right? Something new that I can explore, and then a a subject that means a lot to me, right? Something usually in the world. When I was first starting, a lot of it was more personal stuff, and then as I did the self work, and as I processed a lot of my traumas and improved myself as a person, I was able to look more outward and like speak about things that are larger than myself. And so I want to make sure that I have a subject that means a lot to me, and then I also want to make sure that I have an emotional resonance, right? And when all those things come together, that's when you get something that is truly impactful.
So how you balance, how you um, manage to balance with the technical part and the deeper meaning that you are trying to put inside your designs.
I mean, I definitely don't look at it as a balance, right? That sort of implies that, well, I guess there is a little bit of balance. Like, for example, the latest piece was an exercise in control over the detail and where the detail goes, right? Because different pieces are representing different scales of objects, and some things are further close to the camera and some things are further away from the camera. I had to balance how detailed I was going to make each piece because I can sit and add more and more and more and more detail into a thing, but you ask any painter and they're going to tell you that is a pitfall that most beginners will fall into, is just making everything detailed, right? You look at the master painters of days past and you can marvel at how simplistic their most of their forms are on a work, on a painting that looks super finished, but it's the parts that people are supposed to pay attention to. That's the parts that are the most detailed. And
More is
so,
less. This
yeah,
is
and that is something
really.
that does require balance, is you can't just shove a technique in there because you're excited about it. It has to serve the work.
I'm all the time seeing that in a lot of designs, a lot of artists that trying to put a lot of techniques and even not the techniques themselves, a lot of details, a lot of designs in one design, and it's ruining the actual art. For me, less is more, and more is less. So try for the viewers, try to take your art and express yourself or your art as simple as you can. Don't load a lot of um, details or designs inside one design. And
And
this is something unique that I saw in your designs, that you are focusing on the story and you are not trying to load it with a lot of details.
yeah, and the approach is going to be different if it is a what I would sort of call a pedestal piece versus an entire scene, right? Like if you're a sculptor, you can make an amazing sculpture, and then if you like put it on a pedestal, right, in the middle of the room, and that's how you display the sculpture. The pedestal is not the art, right? The sculpture is the art, and it's meant to be viewed and processed and perceived alone in isolation, right? And if you're doing something like that, it's much easier to put in as much detail as possible because you're probably going to be putting it in front of like a white or a black background, sort of erase the rest of the scene. Even with like some other works, I've put them in like a real life location, but the location is not meant to be perceived as the art itself, right? Versus building an entire scene and then you have to decide how much of it is going to be just a plain backdrop, how much of it is going to be balloons, and it allows you to break it up into steps where you can step one, maybe like day one, if you're breaking it up into different days. Day one, you build the environment, and because you have to build the entire environment, you have to do a lot of work, and it has to be a bit simpler in order to get it all done at an appropriate time so you can spend the time necessary to work on the centerpiece forms, right? And so having a clear delineation between environment and subject matter is often a very easy way of allowing yourself to point towards what actually needs the detail and what can be simplistic and just communicate setting without uh, being a distraction.
That's really unique way of thinking, and thank you for saying that. Um, for my last question, um, looking ahead of us to the future, what do you think artists should start exploring more about balloons?
Ooh. Um, Whatever I haven't thought of yet, whatever I'm not expecting, right? Whenever I see something that it's like, wow, I never thought to do that, you know. Um, it's always really, really cool experience. And it's really great to see people feel like they're being given the permission to do new things. There's still a lot of stigma and a lot of rigid expectation. We've come a long way, and I've attempted to push the bar in that direction, right? But there is still an expectation, and people still talk about what balloons should be, right? And they should do this and they should do that. And I just want to see more artists just breaking that down and being like, no, there's room for all of us, right? There's room for different modes of expression. And I want people to express themselves in every single uh, way that they can, with every single emotion, talking about every single aspect of life, right? And that is how we expand the medium. That is how we expand our horizons. And yeah, I it's really hard for me to come up with something because the point is to surprise. The point is to explore new things. And yeah, I just really hope that people will do continue to do new things.
You know, I think that you are the one that showed everybody that balloons are not just for kids and for happiness. Uh, they can express a lot of emotions. Um, and this is something that I will take for myself for the future, um, maybe for my exhibitions, um, to understand that um, the emotion is the thing that we need to think about when we design. Um, I have a great story about a couple of uh, older Grammys that travel um, took a walk inside of one of my exhibitions in New York, um, and I asked them what they think about the exhibition, and they told me that the emotions that they experienced all over this exhibition was something that they never felt before because it was tons of emotions in 1 hour. And I think that you show everybody that balloons can become different, can become something really, really, really unique. Um, and this has led me to the end uh, for to thank you for being a part in our industry, for being a part, significant part in this community, and thank you for this unique and wonderful interview, for all your answers. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Kobe. That's really touching to hear. And I'm not the first, right? I was inspired by people who also explored different modes of exploration and expression. You already had Rupert Appleyard on your podcast, and he was an inspiration with some of the stuff that he's done. People like Larry Moss, and there's many others, but I think what made me different was just the dedication to a very specific form of expression. And yeah, like there's a lot of room for people to find their own more specific forms of expression and to dedicate themselves and to pursue that level of excellence and yeah.
Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you
Thank
very,
you.
very much for being here. I'm very humbled and honored that you are here. Uh, uh, and I just want to wish you great day, great week, and great year.
Thank you. I look forward to seeing the next evolution of the large installations and stuff and seeing where that goes as well.
I hope so. Thank you very much, my friend. See you. Hope to
Have a
see you
good one.
soon. Thank you for being part of this conversation. I really hope you enjoyed it. Here on VisionAir, we don't just talk about balloons. We talk about vision, courage, creativity, and the people who turn imagination into reality. So if this story inspired you, make sure to follow, subscribe, and stay connected. More episodes, more journeys, and more inspiration are coming soon. I'm Kobe, and this is VisionAir. See you in the next episode.